Hello, and thank you for checking out this message from Grace Church San Diego. Now think through your life. What story will be told about you after you're gone? Moses was just a man, but he, like you and I, was called to be a part of something bigger than himself. God often uses those who are ordinary to lead, to guide, and to influence. In this series, we will sift through the struggle of rising up to God's calling to see the beautiful adventure it is to step into your purpose. We'd love to hear how Grace Church is affecting your life. So please send an email to info@gracesd.com with your story. Or if you'd like to help support our ministry financially, you can visit the website below so we can continue to help people find Christ and become His mature followers.
In 2010, I found myself right in the middle of the year, really kind of emotionally wrung. And I had spent some time praying about that struggle that was going on in my life, and it seemed overwhelming to me. And I can remember one day especially, I had been praying the night before, and I was struggling with the changes that I was leading Grace Church through. And as I was leading that through, there was a lot of missteps on my part, and there was a lot of misunderstanding by the people of Grace Church. And it created such a dynamic in me. It wasn't the workload that was causing burnout. It was actually my response to the things going around me. It was more than stress. It was different than stress. It wasn't just that there was a stressor there. I was actually spent. I was at the end of myself. It's what we call leadership burnout. Some of you experience that, but you don't have to be a leader to experience burnout. I want to talk about Moses and the burnout that he went through in his life. Welcome to Grace Church. You glad to be here? Yes? Yeah. Awesome. Those of you online, we welcome you as well. Good to have you with us. And we want to remind you, in this place, you are safe. We want you to know that we're not here to judge you. We're here to help, and we're encouraging each other along the way. So we've got a situation going on in North Park today. Our campus there, we had to go back to four services. It was just too many people, and what happened was only the best people came to East. Look around. You are the best people we had at Grace Church San Diego. And I'm not saying they're losers. I'm just saying you're amazing. Now, what we want to do is and if you would reach in your program, and there's a little card in there that says top 5 list. My top 5. It doesn't say my top 5 list. It just says my top 5. There are 5 spaces there. This is what I want you to do. On the 25th of September, 2 weeks from today, we are going to start, we are going to launch this campus officially. Everything we've been doing up to this point has just been what we call a soft launch. It has been practice run. It's been amazing, hasn't it? Have you enjoyed it? Yeah, 2 of you have enjoyed it. That's awesome. But anyway, we're going to, in earnest, our grand opening is September 25th. We have sent out mailers to this community. We've done some work. We've invited people. We really want to launch and hit the fall and see what God does to establish an incredible work here in East County. So the good start is you. So what I want you to do, number one reason why people come to church is because they have a personal invitation. So write down 5 people that you know that you would like to invite. Don't invite them this week. What I want you to do is I want you to pray throughout this whole week. Write them down. Start praying for them today. And then throughout this week, pray for them. And then next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day is appropriate, whenever you see them, make an attempt to invite them to September 25th. And if every one of us bring at least 1 or 2, we're going to see a great work begin. And we want to encourage you to do this. This is our church. This is my church. This is the elders' church. This church is yours. You are the body of Christ. Now, I want to put that responsibility and opportunity on you to invite your friends. So not only be here, but invite some friends. Enough said on that. If you need a Bible this morning, would you raise your hand? Our ushers will come by and hand you a Bible you can use. We're going to look at Exodus chapter 18. We're going to look at 17 briefly, but Exodus 18. Here's how you get there. The first book of the Bible is Genesis. The second book of the Bible is Exodus. If you're not familiar with the Bible, that's how you get there. Genesis, Exodus. Right at the beginning of the Bible, you'll find it there. Now, you're going to need your outline, so pull out your outline and let's take a look at leadership burnout. Leadership burnout is a real problem, but I want to expand it beyond just leadership burnout. I want to expand it to every one of us. If you're a mom, you're a leader. If you're a dad, you're a leader. If you're a electrician, you're a leader. If you're a plumber, you're a leader. If you're a lawyer, you're a leader. You are leaders in every aspect of your life. Influence is leadership, as we talked about last week. But here's the definition for burnout. When the resources in your life don't rise to the level of the demands on your life. So there are demands on your life, and you need resources to be able to overcome that. When we talk about burnout, it's kind of a point where there is an absolute crash. You are spent. You are emotionally and spiritually spent. You've gone beyond your capacity to move ahead. And we think of burnout, sometimes we think it's like a toggle switch. It's either on or off. Either you're burned out or you're not. But there are degrees of burnout. There are several myths about burnout that I want you to get, that it's only some people believe it's only work-related. It doesn't have to be work-related. It can be in other areas of your life. And some people think it's only for adults. You ever watch a kid throw a tantrum at the end of the day? Get him at the end of the day. You take a toddler, and he's completely beyond his ability to go on anymore. Won't go to bed because he doesn't see that as an option, but he will throw himself on the floor and throw a tantrum. Do you ever see that? Maybe your husband does that. You know what I'm talking about, ladies. So the reality is that there could be a tantrum. So here's the point. Whenever our resources in our life don't rise to the level of our demands in our life, we have a problem. So I want to illustrate this. I'm going to ask, we have every month we choose someone who serves in our ministries at Grace, both North Park and here, to be the hero of the month, and the staff votes on this, and we voted Tira to be the hero of the month. And I'm going to ask her and Ronnie, if you'll come up, and while they're coming up, I'm going to illustrate this. Come on up. I just about fell. Don't worry about that. I'm a professional. I do this regular basis. So here's one set of weights. We're talking about resources here, and here's next set of weights. And what I want you to do is I want you to stand over here, and Ronnie, I want you to take these. Now, Ronnie is a military vet. Oh, wow. He knew he was going to do this. He's got his weight belt on. Okay, life just got good. All right, here you go, Tira. Now, you'll notice Tira may or may not, we're not confirming or denying that she may be pregnant. We don't know. But she is a hero of the month. So what we're going to do, So Tira, I want you to grab these. You can hold them down to your side for a minute. And Ronnie, you take those. Now, oh, wow. You've been working out. So here's Ronnie, military vet, good man, spent his tour in Afghanistan. We're going to see how this goes, all right? So what I want you to do is both of you, I want you to put your arms straight out like this and hold them there as long as you possibly can, okay? Straight out. Let's go. Now I'm going to preach, and let's see how this goes. Do not pay attention to them. He's going to make faces and stuff. Forget he's even there. Is he in the picture frame? I don't want him in the picture frame. Get him out. Tira's fine. All right, burnout. It's when the resources are depleted. I'm seeing you starting to shake a little bit. Oh, no, that's cheating. Don't do that. Okay, so we're going to see how long they can make a go of this. When we talk about burnout has cycles, and you see in your outline that there are 4 aspects of burnout. First one is this, performance driver. And what I mean by performance driver is when, excuse me, you're not supposed to talk. Are you losing it here? Are you doing okay? All right. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. He's got to show off. He's in the right family for that. When everything depends on you and you believe that you have to perform in order for you to have real impact in life and to have meaning and purpose, you've got to produce. This performance mentality. Are you doing okay, Ronnie? How are we doing? You just keep these arms straight there, buddy. Yeah, how you doing? Pregnant, And I think we have a winner. All right, set it down. You can just set them right down there. Don't worry about it. So, you know, it's obvious what we're talking about, ladies. You are stronger than men, even when you're pregnant. If she delivers a child today, I'm going to be in such big trouble. I mean, this is not, don't ever use a pregnant woman in a weightlifting illustration. Performance driver, that performance driver is something that you just think you have to do it and nobody else can do it. I have to do it alone. And what happens in this cycle, this burnout cycle, is we increase our effort. Now, if it just stopped there, if we just increased our effort, we would be okay. So there's no problem with hard work. Most of you enjoy and are committed to hard work. That's not the problem. The problem is not effort. The problem is the third aspect of burnout cycle is we neglect ourselves. We don't take care of ourselves emotionally and spiritually. And because we don't take care of ourselves emotionally and spiritually, we find ourselves depleted. And as we get depleted more and more, we go back to this idea of performance driver. And we go into this cycle, and this cycle drives us all the way back because I'm burnt out, but I think my boss demands that I produce more, or my wife, or my husband, or my kids, or whoever, my parents. And so what happens is, out of fear of failure, it drives us back to performance driver. And we're caught in a loop of this performance-oriented burnout cycle. That is a very common problem in our Western culture. And I want you to see this with two illustrations of Moses. And our topic has been the life of Moses, the reluctant leader. We talked about his reluctance to want to lead. But the problem is that leaders that endure seek help, but most leaders don't seek help. They think they can do it on their own. Years ago, I watched as pastor, kind of megachurch pastor after megachurch pastor, fell into moral failure. They didn't wake up one day and say, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat on my wife. These guys are well-meaning. I can tell you, I know a lot of pastors. Pastors are not people that are committed to immorality. They're committed to God. They want to serve God. But who are you going to attack? If you're Satan, who are you going to attack? You're going to attack a spiritual leader, because if you can impact his life negatively and cause him to fall into immorality, think of all the thousands, especially a megachurch, but think about the thousands of people who will be impacted by that. So the pressure is on. But what's happened to these leaders, and you'll see it over and over in their testimonies, that they didn't turn to people for help. They were trying to do it on their own. Why don't leaders seek help? Why don't we as individuals seek help? When you find yourself struggling with alcohol or drugs, why is it that we privatize that and we don't seek help? What is it when men fall into a struggle with pornography? Why do they privatize it? Maybe because of shame, but a lot of it is due, I can do this myself. You see, that creates this burnout. Why don't leaders seek help? I think it's a lot of people are control freaks. They want to control their life. They think they can do it. I think they have big egos is the second reason. Their ego says, I can handle this. It's no problem. I can do this. The third reason is it's a false sense of responsibility. I'm supposed to do it alone. Men are taught to be rugged individualists, that they can do this on their own. That leads to devastation. We are starting today our push for connect groups. And if you think, men and women, if you think you can do this alone, you're going to be miserably mistaken, and you will find yourself at a point of burnout, both spiritually or emotionally. Lack of trust of other people is the fourth reason. They just don't trust other people. They're afraid that they're not going to be safe. One of our greatest desires is to make Grace Church a safe place for you. Because if you're not safe, you're not going to share your needs. And if you don't share your needs, you're going to be on your own. And if you're on your own, you're going to fail. I need you, you need me. And so this burnout problem is a real problem of individualism. And maybe the fifth reason, it's too much work to train other people. And thinking about the workload, leaders oftentimes do it themselves because they think it's too hard to teach somebody else how to do it. You ever do that with your kids? You go, man, I would love to have my kids do this, but it takes too much work to train them to do it. Now, if you got a 1-year-old, probably can't do anything. But, when they're 15, 16, they need to be able to produce something. So we need to train, and that's the idea of quality leadership. So let me give you the first illustration. This is out of Exodus 17. We'll look at 18 in a minute. Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. So we're going to go to battle. They have come up against us. We're going to go to battle. Israel is going to go. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Now remember what Moses was told. We talked about this last week. What is in your hand, God said, when he was protesting going into leadership to delivering the people. And he said a staff. That's a key question. God is asking you, what's in your hand? Because God's going to use whatever is in your hand to do powerful things, but you can't do it on your own. And so he throws down the staff, it turns to a serpent, and then he picks it up as God directs him, and it becomes a staff again. This becomes a symbol of connection with Moses and God. This staff, and it's referred to here as the staff of God. It is God's symbol of power. And he said, I will stand on the mountain. And in verse 10 it says, so Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And then verse 11 it says, whenever Moses held up his staff or his hand, Israel prevailed. And whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. So we got a problem. Here it relies upon Moses to keep the battle going. So he's got his staff, and this actual staff that he had, it's amazing. I got this. Made in Japan. I don't know why but anyway. And he took this staff, and obviously he held it up with both hands, as you'll see in a moment. And when it was held up, you remember the crossing of the Red Sea. The crossing of the Red Sea got him to where the waters were parted, and they were able to go across on dry ground. He was able to hit the rock, and water came with the staff. Here he's going to hold it up, and as he holds it up, they're winning. But he gets tired, a lot like Ronnie House. And it's pretty soon it's down, and they start to lose, and it gets worse and worse, and now it's down, and they're losing terribly. And so he lifts it back up, and now he starts to get tired, and he really can't take it. Have you ever been to that place where you're so tired, you don't think that you can take it? I got to tell you something. One day, I was counseling this guy, and I had stayed up all night with a sick baby. This is when my daughter Carrie McCall was very sick, and I stayed up all night with her. And the next day, I didn't want to go to work, but I was in this small church. I was the only guy on staff, and there was a guy that was going to meet me for counseling, and I just couldn't get out of it. And when he came in, I told him, I said, hey, look, I just need to let you know I'm really tired. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to probably cut this short. And I remember he's sitting there talking, and I had this really soft chair. You have a chair that you just love. It's so soft, and it's just like you just kind of melt into it. And you want to watch TV, but you really can't, or you want to listen to your wife, but all you hear is wah, 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 because you're just like, you know what I mean? I mean, you love her. You care about what she has to say sometimes, and you're just sitting, and this guy's talking. And I could see, I'm starting to see double vision. I'm serious, man. He turned into two people. I didn't think I could handle one people, much less two. And he's talking, and it sounded like this. Wah, 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 wah. And I adjusted, He's not getting the clues that I'm really sleepy. And I can remember putting my head down a little bit while he's talking. And then everything went blank. And the next thing I know, it was this. I looked up and he was gone. Oh my gosh, what a love. I'm not saying this is my best moment as a pastor. I'm just saying it happened. And I felt so bad, and I called the guy. He wouldn't take my call, sometimes you just can't go on. If it's on you, you can't do it. And so they came up with a solution. And in verse 12 it says, so Moses' hands grew weary, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands on one side and on the other side. And so he got to that point to where, and I would have Ronnie come up and help me, but obviously he's not strong enough to help on these things. But then he just sat there, and they actually took a stone so he could sit down, and he took his staff, and he held it up, both hands, and they stood next to him. And so they don't have to stand up and hold it. They can just stand next to him like this, and they don't have to exert a lot of energy. And the whole day, it goes on, all the way until evening. And guess what? Israel destroyed Amalek. Because Moses realized he needed support from other people. You can't do it alone. And when you think you can do it alone, you're going to get to that point to where you are going to have a spiritual, a moral, an emotional, or physical breakdown. You're going to go to the point where you are spent. So if you look at the next chapter, Exodus chapter 18, let me go through this real quickly. Moses was judging the people. And the way it was going was Moses would get in front of the people. Now understand, there's a couple of million people. Now everybody didn't have a dispute every day, but people had what are called civil disputes. He was the only judge. And so what the people would do when they would have, think about this, they are living in a communal environment. They're setting up tents, they're moving. It's not a great environment. And I think about the hygiene issues and all of that. I could never make it. I'm not much of a camper, but these guys are camping out for 40 years. This is their deal. But they come to him for their disputes, property disputes. He put his tent on my stake, and he took my stuff, and he's yelling at my kids, and whatever it is that happens in a communal relationship. And then Moses is dealing with all these disputes from morning till evening, every single day, and Joshua is seeing what's going on. So here Jethro comes up with a plan. First of all, he presents the problem. Secondly, he gives the advice. And then finally, he gives the result you'll see in your outline. Let me take you through this process. The first is the problem. It says, Moses' father-in-law said to him, what you are doing is not good. You and the people with you will certainly wear yourselves out. You see, it's not just you that's going to wear out. The people are going to wear out. They have to wait all day to see you. For the thing that you are doing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. This is the problem with leadership burnout. Moses, from the book of Moses, or the book of Exodus, we see in the life of Moses this tendency to want to do it on his own. And he's trying to make it work, but it won't work. And so here's the problem. This thing is too heavy. Moses is going to wear out. The people are going to wear out. This is the problem. He's not able to do it by himself. Now he gives the advice. So in verse 19 he says, now obey my voice. I will give you advice, and God be with you. In other words, I'm speaking as God gives me these words. You shall represent the people before God and bring their cases to God. Now, here's the first point of advice. The first point of advice is do what only you can do. Do what only you can do. I have a tendency, I'm an A-type personality, and I'm a control freak. And I have a friend that used to work with me all the time, Dana Dimitri, and she used to tell me, Tim, you can't do this and this and this. You should do only that which you can do. And she'd say that over and over again. And she's kind of the same way, so I'd say it back to her somewhat, But we had that mutual problem in that we are, overwork, overexert, and think we can do it on our own. And I always remember that. And I think this is the advice that he is saying to Moses. Moses, do what only you can do. What is that only Moses can do? Only Moses can represent the people to God. And he said, so first of all, represent the people to God. Here's the second point of advice. In the next verse, in verse 20, and you shall warn them about the statutes and the laws and make them know the way in which they must walk and what they must do. And here's the problem. He was teaching them one-on-one, so someone would come to them and they would have a dispute, and he would teach them face-to-face. We know this from verse 15. It says, "And Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God, when they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make known," listen to this, "and I make known the statutes of God and his laws." So get the picture. You got a few million people. You got a couple of people in dispute, 2 men possibly. And the dispute maybe is minor, maybe it's major. So they come before Moses, and Moses is sitting there listening to their dispute. And he judges their dispute and then explains to them what the ideals are of God's justice and laws. The only ones that hear it are those two, and maybe a few in the earshot. So Moses is given a directive by Jethro, his father-in-law, to teach it to everybody. So instead of just teaching one person case by case, teach it to all people. You know, I used to counsel people in what we call Breathe 90. I wrote this program called Breathe 90. It was about anxiety. And I found out that many people with substance abuse, especially alcohol, have a tendency or struggle with the tendency towards anxiety. And I began to realize that this problem was a driver for substance abuse. I began to realize that this problem was a driver for leadership failure and marriage, divorce, and so forth. And I began to realize how important it was in my life to get over this anxiety. And so I started teaching people and counseling them privately. And I'd go through this. And my wife encouraged me to write this down. And so I wrote it down into a 90-day program. And I've taken about 150 people through that course. It's easier to teach it to a group of people and get more people understanding these principles than just doing it yourself. I used to take every couple that I would marry, I would take them through 4 to 6 sessions of premarital counseling. People still say, we have over 3,000 people in this church and a lot of young people, and everybody seems like they want to get married, and which is a great thing. But I can't counsel all those couples, and so I stopped doing that, and we wrote this program called Boot Camp, and Marriage Boot Camp, and then we have other people teaching that and taking them through these principles. This is what Jethro is telling Moses to do. Look, you're going to burn out, so give this information away. Teach everybody these principles. So, second point of advice, teach the people the way to live. Teach all the people the way to live. At your fill-in. And then in verse 21, moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe. What kind of people are you supposed to look for? People that hate a bribe. These are qualified leaders. So the answer or the advice that he gives is choose qualified leaders. Choose qualified leaders. What are these qualified leaders? They're able men. They have to be able. Look for able men from all the people. Men who, secondly, fear God. They understand that life is accountable to God. They're not just afraid of human correction. They understand that they're accountable to God. The fear of the Lord is not just an awe of God, but understanding we give an account of what we do to God. That's the fear of the Lord. And then third, they have to be trustworthy. They have to be people that are not going to take a bribe. They actually hate the bribe. They would never make it in American politics. I just don't think so. But anyway, they hate a bribe. And think about these men that might be in a civil suit and one guy takes a bribe. That becomes a judge. We'd have a serious problem. So Jethro gives really quality advice. Understand the law later on memorialized all of these truths. But before the law was given, this is what was given by Jethro. And then the final point of advice, moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs, one over thousands, over hundreds, over 50s, and over 10s. Some people can handle 10. Some people can handle 50. Some can handle hundreds, but you've got an accountability. And this idea is that we pass on this leadership and we delegate it out, and this delegation works very well. We have what we call at Grace Church a leadership ladder. You start out as a volunteer, no deep commitment, you just volunteering every once in a while. The commitment is shallow between you and your supervisor. But then you become a team member. At the point that you become a team member, you actually sign an agreement, and you're saying, you can count on me. And the leader is saying, you can count on me. So there's a connection, and we listen to each other. And then after you've served for a while, you may show your leadership skill, and you become a stronger leader, and you become a team leader. And if you show great leadership skill there, you can become a ministry partner. And that's how you go up this leadership ladder. In fact, this is how we end up choosing staff members, is through this leadership ladder. Very rarely do we hire outside. We hire people within our congregation. So the idea is to pass it down, to delegate it out. And Jethro, his point of advice is give authority away. Give this authority away. People like me struggle with giving authority away. It's very difficult for us to let it go. And here's the results. He gives finally the results. So it will be easier for you. Number one, it'll be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you, so you will be able to endure. And so two things. The first two things are, it will be easier for you. Secondly, you'll be able to endure it. You won't go to burnout. And number three, all the people also will go to their place in peace. It will result in peace within the community of the house of Israel. These are the results. Well, let me pull this together into thinking about this concept of burnout. Now, let me just ask you a personal question, and just want you to think about this. How much of your life will you allow people to see? How much do you hold back? I'm not talking about things in your past. I'm not talking about private things that God has forgiven, and those are completely under the blood of Christ. I'm talking about right now, a struggle that you're going through. Do you have anyone you trust that you can confide in? You've got to learn to have that kind of connection, at least one person that you know that you can go to, that you're safe with that individual. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to expose you. They're not going to reject you. And they're going to be able to handle it. They can actually handle what it is they're sharing. It's very important. Struggling with your marriage? I struggled in marriage that was so difficult, I never told anybody. I put on a face. And so everybody was shocked when my first marriage fell apart. My first wife, Linda, was unwilling to share her personal struggle with addiction. And she never was able to release that. Ended up taking her own life because she was unwilling. She couldn't manage it herself. She burned out. Emotionally, spiritually, even physically. And her only thought was hopelessness. It's because she didn't bring people into her world. So are you willing to come to someone? And the first step is to do this. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." This word labor, kopio in the Greek, it means to work hard, but not just to work hard. It is the result of working hard to the point that you're spent, that you're completely out of energy. Come to me, all of you who have gone to the point to where you're burned out. You have no more energy. You are completely beyond yourself. You can't go on anymore. And are heavy laden. That word heavy laden, it actually means fortion. The word fortion is a light load. I cheated Ronnie on this. This is a 10-pound, which I could have held all day. But my son Ronnie, a little bit weaker than me. But I gave the pregnant hero of the month 5-pounder, and she was able to hold it up. Do you know what? The word fortion in the Greek means a light load. The word baros means a heavy load. Now, I can tell you, I can feel this one already. Okay, I'm just showing you what I'm at there. That was all. But this light load, guess what it becomes? a really heavy load, the longer I hold it. The longer you try to endure by yourself, this light load becomes a heavy load. And so he strategically uses this word fortion, a light load that has become heavy because of how long you've been carrying it. It's time to get it off your chest and come to Jesus. And he says, I will give you anapao. Anapao. I love this Greek word. It means, ana means again. It literally means to stop again. It's not a vacation. It's not a sabbatical. It is again stopping over and over again. It is the load that is set down. And so when you have this heavy load and Jesus comes along and he supports that, and you go, what in the world's going on here? Why do I have so much strength? It's because the hand of Jesus is supporting you. This is what God has called us to, is to this rest. And he goes on, take up my yoke. You know what a yoke is? You take one oxen, you take another oxen, you put a yoke, and they're together. Guess how fast they go? The speed of the slowest one. They're not going to go faster than the slow guy. I mean, maybe at first, but then he's going to slow down, and then they both have to slow down. This is what Jesus, you see, we think of this, take up my yoke, and we think, okay, we have to go as fast as the God-man, Jesus. No, what he's saying is, my yoke is easy, so I'll slow down for you. I'll be patient for you. And I just want to learn. I want you to learn from me. So take up my yoke and learn from me. Jesus patiently slows down for us. How fast could Jesus go? Let's see. He created the universe. I think he can go faster than you. And he slows down because he's yoked with you and you're yoked with him. And there's this communication where you're learning and growing at the speed at which you can do. For I am gentle and lowly in heart. The word gentle means I'm unaffected. It's not about me. It's about you. I want you to learn. I want you to grow. I am lowly and in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Come to Jesus. Religion will wear you out. Come to Jesus. Relationships for the purpose of meaning are going to wear you out. Come to Jesus. Come to Jesus because success, drive, and chasing success day after day is going to wear you out. So come to Jesus. You've got to come to Jesus because all of us struggle with this heavy load, and the only way that we can overcome is to come to Jesus. Would you bow your head?